Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to this Live at 8. My name is Jonathan and it's a pleasure to see you here this evening. So how have you all been on a week that has seen CQC issue the formal death notifications from COVID? It has been quite a sobering week, and I've got to say personally, it has been an incredibly tough week, as I'm sure many of you out there have also found. We're currently in outbreak. We've been locked down, and I've got several staff who are also off with COVID. Our occupancy is probably the lowest it's ever been, and we've had a series of rather unfortunate and rather unexpected deaths, which I've got to say non-COVID related. Which have really shaken the staff. So, every single day we're here, we're up against it, and guys, it is tough. I've said before, 16 years in Her Majesty's forces, fighting operations in here, there, and everywhere. And I've got to say, this is the toughest thing. This is the toughest thing I've ever personally done. And a number of reasons for that is that when you're in the forces, whether it be a 16 or 6-month operational tour, there is an end state. There's always a time to be able to call it a day. But I'm afraid not with this. We are, it is every single day. There is no end in sight, and for some people, understandably, myself included, that is tough. So cut yourself as a bit of slack. If you're finding it tough, then we're all finding it tough at the moment, guys. Tonight I want to talk about basically readying your organization for COVID. And for many of you, you say, well, what do you mean by that? That's we've all experienced COVID. Of course you have. But I just want to talk through a number of things, which, as you've got here, underneath here, there we go, underneath there, becoming COVID resilient is a time to change your care mindset. And what I want to get away from is your organizations getting away from this Armageddon scenario that you're going to have to face COVID, and COVID will come into your building. I'm afraid it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And your default brain, of course, defaults to the worst case scenario. That's how our brains work. So the worst case scenario is then painted in your head, whether it be on the staffing side, whether it be the resident side, etc. And of course, that's the thing which can really distract you. So I just want to talk through resilience tonight, and by all means take some of this stuff away. Or not. I've also just got to say, just before I sort of get into the main meat of it, there are some fabulous books out there, and one there's a chap who I'm sort of familiar with. I don't know him particularly, super well, but a guy called Neil Jerd, and this is his leadership. There you go, leadership book. I've got no stake in this, by the way, whatsoever. But I've got to say, of all the leadership books I've ever seen on the market, this is absolutely superb, and that's so well worth just having a flick through. There's some fabulous chapters on it, and again, I'm not going to go through that. But if you want to read, there we go. Let me get. If you want to read, then that's well worth. Eventually, when you're going on holiday, to pick up a book of that, and I'll put the link in the thing. Right, tonight I just want to talk about mindset. I want to talk about your mindset. I want to talk your organization mindset, and I want to change it from fear to thrive. There's absolutely no doubt. I want to talk about resilience, and the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover from difficulties. I'd probably also, take an additional step beyond that, which is to remain operational throughout. Recovering isn't acceptable enough, and whilst that's great, but recovery, recover almost implies that you can sustain an impact in terms of operational impact. Your operational output is affected by that, and then in time you recover from that. So quite simply, guys, we're in a business where we've got to remain looking after our gorgeous people in our beds, making sure the staff are well led, and so we've got to remain operational throughout. So I'd go, it's not about recovering, whilst that is important, is be able to survive and be able to remain resilient in the face of these operational shocks. So it's about accepting the new reality of our situation, that COVID is here. COVID will affect your care operation, and COVID, if it hasn't already, it will come into your home, and it will affect and will infect your residents and your staff. And if it hasn't, huge well done. The figures which were released last week, whilst they're sobering, and you go through those and you start thinking, well, there are some homes that suffered massive attrition. Equally, consider how many homes were not on there, and there's many of you possibly on the call tonight that you'll say, "Yeah, our home wasn't on there." And equally, there are some homes which have extraordinary high figures. Doesn't mean that therefore they let the ball drop. Not at all. There are also some of those who are designated settings, so they were established in order to take on in COVID positive residents, and of course that's not explained fully in some of the narrative building up to those figures, which I felt was unfair. I think we all need to prepare for battle. And whilst we were talking about this last year, of course we were when I was broadcasting every night. I think you've got to prepare your staff, and this is really that. And this week, in the last few weeks, while we've had an outbreak, one thing which was absolutely imperative to me and so important was to completely put this calming oil over the situation, so that you are the calming effect. That, in terms of a leadership role, you're there to calm, you're there to be non-alarmist, you're there to reassure, provide comfort, and provide clear direction in the times of crisis. And you want to not use the word crisis, or it is basically you are the calming effect. And that makes a massive difference to your staff, because they're there, they hang on your every word. They hang and they look at you in the eyes when they say to you, "We've just had a positive lateral flow test from room 23. And they look to see how you're going to react. Are you running for the hills, screaming and don't panic, almost like a Dad's Army scenario? Or actually, do you say, right, that's absolutely fine. Let's put them isolated. Let's put them barrier nursing. Let's make sure that we do a PCR now. Okay, let's just make sure we lateral flow everyone else. It's those calming, clear direction that we're looking for. So what can we do? There's a number of things which I suggest we all need to be doing, and certainly it's something that we've been looking at in the last week or so. The first thing, as I've said, is just be non-alarmist. This is a real leadership role for you and for all of your senior team. Talk about not if, but when it's going to happen. So if it hasn't happened to your home, talk about when it comes into the home, because your staff will start to get battle conditioned. They'll start to get rehearsed. They'll start that scenario in their head, and it won't be so alarmist when it actually does hit. Because, guys, this is going to be around for the next few years. This isn't just a flash in the pan. This isn't going to be over by Christmas. Not at all. We're going to see surge after this. There's going to be a wave. It's going to be another wave. Homes are going to go into lockdown. Into breakout with no admissions, and that's just going to be run of the mill, I'm afraid. And you've got to be able to weather that storm. Rehearse the scenario, remain calm, unemotional, establish your support, emotional support for your staff. Make sure that they have a place to go to, that they do, when they feel anxious, and of course they feel anxious, that they've got a place. And it might be counseling, it might just be just a compassionate leadership, guys. That's what we're talking about, just compassionate leadership, that they can lean on you and they know they're going to get a good, warming, comforting response. So prepare your logistics, and this is like long-term logistics. So this is almost, look at your home. If stuff looks temporary, if you've got donning and doffing stations which are just made out of temporary tables, if you've got stuff which is blue tack to a wall, start now to think about making it a little bit more permanent, a little bit more resilient. We've started putting hooks now on walls at donning and doffing stations, so they're not trying to peel out loads of aprons, that they're just on a simple hook on the wall, so you can easy to access. So and that's a really important thing. Make sure you've got framed donning and doffing pictures for how to don and doff. There's a strangest word in the donning and doffing, but anyway. And if you talk to someone who's not in the care about donning and doffing, they think, what the hell are you talking about? As someone told me the other day. So, you know, your testing, your swabbing routine is just routine now, guys. And this is going to, you know, so again, and apologies, you're probably thinking, well, we know that, but certainly look at your logistics. You know, it is here for a while. Right, preparing your relatives. This is super important. I've built my reputation, certainly in our home, of being so compassionately honest. Not brutally honest, but compassionately honest. And so I remember saying to my relatives right at the very start, this is last year, I will deliver both good and bad news to you, and news that you don't want to hear, but I will always deliver it. Whatever the consequence, whatever how it might make you feel, I will always deliver completely straight down the line, honest feedback. And recently that's been the case. So every single day, you know, I've got good lines of communication. I've got the email address of every single relative in terms of close, the next of kin. I email them on lockdown or breakout, whatever you want to call it. Every single day, I email them. Every single, you know, I send out an update in terms of a video update, so they can see me, they can see my emotions, they can see the whites of my eyes when I'm talking to them. This thing is so important. I communicate every single week by video on WhatsApp to my staff. I've got an all staff WhatsApp group, and we've got sub WhatsApp group, but every single day we see that. So, really, really important. So immediate lines of communication, email, and I just also talk about relatives, particularly new relatives. I say, look, the reality is that COVID will come into the building. So they're prepared for that. It's not a big shock. And that the vast majority will be absolutely fine. Double vaccinations with regular testing and PPE. We had none of this last year, so we're in a fantastic position this year. Prepare your organisation. This is now, guys, this is defence in depth. Move away from the old staffing models. So we're now trying to take on more staff, some more bodies for the same hours. So the idea of people sort of doing the 12-hour shifts, it suits a lot of people. It also doesn't suit a lot of people. And I always say to people when they come for an interview, but we don't do interviews in our place, as you might have heard, is that the whole thing is based on a win-win situation. What is it you're after? What is it we're after? Hey, and let's have let's do a bit of horse trading. What can you give us? What can we give you? And you end up with a fantastic, so they might want to split shifts. They might want to come in at 9 o'clock, but they can stay a little later. Hey, that's super cool by me. I'd rather have someone who's content, who's going to go the extra mile for longer, rather than thinking, right, I'll put up with this for 6 months and then I'm going to bugger off, and that's it. So this win-win scenario, split shifts, set days. Hey, that's cool by me. If it means I've got a happier workforce, then let's rock and roll. And the common themes: quality leadership, positive mental attitude, energized support network. I really know all of those professionals out there, from infection control team all the way to the commissioners, and I immediately inform them of what's going on, so there's no surprises. And this ability also to reframe. What is the scenario that we're facing? It's not Armageddon. This is just reality. So, guys, I'm just going to just have a little look through some of the comments, and thank you for commenting. I've got Facebook user. Let's see. Do you have rules on what the WhatsApp group can be used for? We do, actually. It's all positive. You can't put anyone's named, as in residence named or identifiable information in there, and generally it works really well. So that's just super easy. It's a happy. I always say WhatsApp groups really work if they're a happy place to go, that you're not asking for. So one thing I do ask is that we never ever try and fill rotas from the WhatsApp group. Because if it becomes a stream of, can anyone fill this gap? Can anyone fill this, the off duty? Can anyone fill it? Then it becomes a place that it's not a happy place. So it's a funny place. It's a silly place. It's also a place that we're able to say, look, room 23 sadly passed away last night. So you're not coming in and finding that room 23 is not in the bed, because no one told you. So it's a another WhatsApp user. This is because we're on StreamYard. Jonathan, totally agree with the honesty, no matter what. And it's what my reputation. Well done, Facebook user. I've never known a scenario that warranted uncovering. It will always come out. and it's horrible. It's horrible. Charlotte, good evening, Charlotte. Be careful with using hooks. That's what we had. IPC inspector pick it up as needs to be covered. So we supported a single wrap in the cover. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Charlotte. We're all learning, and again, I'm not saying I get it right. There's a Facebook user there saying, "Good evening, Jonathan." Good evening. There's Charlotte there just saying, "Yeah, totally agree." And there's Roz. Hello, Roz. Hi, Jonathan. Managed to tune in whilst at work. Hey, well, that's good. Live at 8 and at work. And there's Gaynor saying, "Hi, stranger." I know I cut down for a few weeks, which was. It's quite nice, actually. Really also to redefine. Things are really exciting, actually, with the inner circle. Great conversation with Michael Corbett. Once again, the inner circle annual conference will be part of the Care Show on the 13th and 14th of November this year. That's going to be great. We've got our own area. So it's really exciting. And we're just putting the speakers together now as we speak, which is great. And there's Karen. Hello, Karen. And also there's hi JC and all. When everyone calls me JC, I always think it's the army days because I used to be known as JC. Guys, there we go. Let's put back onto yeah, there you go. So becoming COVID resilient is at times change your mindset. The whole thing tonight was about mindset. Also, just to recap, if I can get the other side of the mic, there you go. The leadership book by Neil Jerd. It is superb, and it's a fantastic read. So I'm overplugging it as if like I've got some sort of stake in it. I haven't, honest, but it's a cracking book, and I've read a lot of rubbish, and that one's really good. And so we like to share some good stuff. Finally, guys, if you know of anyone else, please get him into the inner circle. There's care managers out there really struggling. They're on their own and they don't need to be on their own. Once again, have a lovely evening. We'll see you again, if not later on this week, next week. Look after yourselves and remember, sharing is caring. Bye for now.